Hi everyone, I am Adolfo Neto, a professor at the Federal University of Technology, Paraná, here in Curitiba, Brazil. Today is a sunny day here in Curitiba, which is not very common, but it's summer. And this is the Professor Adolfo Neto podcast. In this podcast, I interview professionals from the field of computing and related areas. Today, I'm delighted to have Rickson Oliveira on the show. Rickson is a software engineer at ateliware, a company from Curitiba. And Rickson works in technologies such as Elixir, Phoenix, which is a kind of web framework for Elixir, LiveView, which is a framework for Phoenix, and JavaScript. He also happens to be a former student of ELXPRO, an Elixir course whose creator, Gustavo Oliveira, I had the pleasure of interviewing in a previous episode here. Rickson, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for having accepted my invitation.
Thank you, Adolfo. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to have me here. It's a pleasure to be here. So hopefully we'll have fun.
Okay, so to kick things off, let's get to know you a bit better. What sparked your interest in software engineering or maybe even computer science?
Yeah, so my story starts a few years back when I was still in school, in high school, and I had this cousin, which is a close friend of mine, and me and him we loved everything about technology, computer, but we didn't know anything about computers. We didn't know anything about software engineering. We didn't even know what it was back then. But we wanted to know. We wanted to know how websites were built, how internet got invented. You know how everything is the way it is now. Like why do we have all of this uh, all of this stuff on the tip of our fingers, and how does it how does everything work? So that's how I pretty much got interested in the world of technology. And then from then, me and him we started to search together, in Google. We started to search how things got built, how websites were built, and then we finally discovered that these guys called the software engineers were the ones who do these things. So that's how I got interested in the world of software engineering.
And did you have formal education in computer science or anything related?
Yes, but at this point that I'm explaining, I was still in school, so I at this time I started to look for courses. I started to learn Python back then with a guy from Uberlândia, Minas Gerais. He had this course, in Python that he would give on YouTube, and we would follow him and see how he teached Python, and then we learned that it was a pretty easy language to start with because Python is good for beginners. And then we got to know HTML, CSS. I don't know if you've heard, since you're also a professor, if you heard of Professor Guanabara. He also
Sure.
he lessened a lot of free courses back then, and these were like the guys that got us into the world of technology, because if there wasn't this kind of people in the internet, we would never be able to at least have even started, so after I got graduated in high school, I already know that I wanted to uh, make a college, like make a bachelor degree in computer science or somewhere in the field. Then I learned that there was this online college for analysis and systems development, which was all focused only on software development. So there isn't anything about hardwares or computers in general. It's only focused on software development. So I decided to do that. But for my surprise, it wasn't enough for to get in the market, to get a job, because that's unfortunate here in Brazil that we still don't have like this solid foundation to get jobs in the area with just doing college. So again, I had to go back to the courses, to the online courses. So I was studying analysis and systems development, and while on that, I started to do some online courses. For example, PHP. I started to learn PHP, which I think was mainstream back then. Everyone that wanted to, if we're going to ask someone, how do you get into the field of software engineer, they were going to say PHP, just go with PHP, JavaScript. So I started learning that. And that's when I got my first interview. Because while doing the courses and doing the college, I started to look for an internship or somewhere that accepted juniors. And I got this interview in my town, which is a funny story because when I got this interview, I got it from the internet, and I found it in a Facebook page, and I got in contact with the company. The company is called JMV, JMV Technology. It's a company from that they do like streaming platforms and website hosting. So I found them on Facebook, and they invited me to an interview. But when I got to the interview, I had an Uber drive me there, and when I got there, it was literally just a random house. It was just a normal house, and they worked in the garage, like literally they worked in the garage. So I got like scared, like, is this some kind of scheme? Is this some kind of some kind of fraud? So I remember that even the Uber driver, he told me, hey, if you want me to wait out on the car and just go there and see if it's real, if it's not, then just come back and we go. So he waited for me. So I buzzed the interphone, and it was the real deal. It was really a serious company. Uh, they just started on the garage, so I got my interview. And when I got this interview, actually, they had a lot of people working there. They had like more than 10 people working there. And then I saw it was a real deal. So I got excited. And when I got the interview, the interview was with with the CTO of the company. And when I was doing the interview with him, he told me, hey, so here's the deal. I have this project which I'm going to start. It's a project for an e-learning platform that we're going to build from the ground up. So we need someone that masters, PHP, Laravel, and Vue.js. And I knew nothing of Vue.js, and I was just starting on PHP, so I was horrible back then. But I wanted a job. I wanted to get into the field. It was my dream since I was a teenager. So I wanted that. So he told me, hey, so I'm going to give you access to this bunch of courses, like on Udemy, School of Net. I don't know if you've heard of that. School of Net was a big platform back then. So he gave me access to all of these courses, and he told me, you just come back in 1 month, and if you have learned anything, I'm going to give you a coding challenge, see if you've learned anything. If you learned enough, you're going to get in. And then it took me 3 months to finish the courses. So it was real deep courses for beginners, to like, let's say, mid levels. So I focused on these courses. I remember that I studied until dawn. I went deep into the nights studying, and I had a job which was a pretty heavy job back at the time. I worked unloading containers that came from China, so it was a real heavy job that I had. So I came tired, but still I studied and I got back there. I mailed him 3 months later, and he told me, "Okay, come here and let's see what you learned." And I went there, and he gave me this coding test, which was with a more senior guy at the time, which is now a big friend of mine. His name is Gustavo, another Gustavo. Uh, and he gave me this CRUD to do in PHP, Laravel. Okay, so you just do this create, update, and delete uh, page here, and let's see. And then it took me almost 3 or 4 hours to complete that. I was so nervous, and I was still a junior, and I was pretty bad. Uh, Now I realize it was just a simple test, but back then it was my first interview, my first coding challenge. So yeah, then I did that, and he told me that's all right because you followed all the language patterns, you followed the framework patterns. That's cool. That's enough. And then I got in, and I got my first internship as a software engineer, and then a few months later I got hired, and I worked there for almost 3 years. So it was a pretty cool experience that I'll never forget.
Okay, that's great. But then I'm curious now about how did you discover Elixir, the Elixir programming language, which was
Mhm.
created by a Brazilian like us, and it's not a very famous language in the world of software development. How did you discover that?
Yeah, so still in this experience, I got to know this guy, which is now also a great friend of mine. He's called Marcio Avelino. He's also a former student of the ELXPRO. So I worked with him. He was already a senior, and then he told me we were kind of arguing about PHP, and then he told me there's a paradigm in programming language that you gotta know. It's called functional programming, and I didn't know what it was. And he told me a few languages back then, and he told me that the easiest one to learn was Elixir, and he himself was trying to learn that. So he presented me the YouTube channel that Gustavo had at the time, which was it wasn't called ELXPRO at the time. I don't remember what it was, uh, but it was Gustavo's channel. And then that's when I got to know Elixir, and I got to see those pipelines, all the functions together, one below the other, and that really fascinated me. And that's really different from what I'm doing now because in PHP you have the arrows that you like to use. For example, in JavaScript we use the dots, and then PHP we use the arrows, and that really caught my eye. Those pipelines, and that was pretty cool. So that's where I got to know Elixir, and then I started to study it and saw many benefits that he had out of the box that other language just doesn't have, like fault tolerance, concurrency, parallelism, all these things out of the box with simple deal. Just get Gen server running, and you have everything there real time. You can like build, which were complicated things at the time. I remember I had to build a messaging app at the time using WebSocket, and it took me like a week just to know how to set up a WebSocket. For a junior engineer to know how to set it up, documentations back then was pretty bad, and that was hard work at the time. But with the Elixir, I just got like WebSocket just by running ex mix Linux server, So that was pretty easy. So that really fascinated me, and I got in love with Elixir ever since.
Okay, that's fascinating. It's fun because in a way, Gustavo indirectly brought a new person to the Elixir community through
Yes.
your friend. So now let's tell us about your role at ateliware. It's a curiosity, of course, but before the pandemic, there is an Elixir Curitiba meetup. So people from the Elixir community here in Curitiba, because let me get this clear. You don't live here in Curitiba, although you work for a Curitiba
Yeah.
company, right?
Yeah. I
Where do
work
you
remote.
live?
I live in Divinópolis, Minas Gerais. So I'm
Which
mineiro.
is have you already been here physically in Curitiba for
No, I
the?
had the chance. I had the chance, but I couldn't go. Ateliware actually paid for us to visit the office last year, but sadly I couldn't go because of some personal issues that I had.
Uh,
My
okay,
whole team got there, and that was I missed it. I regret it, but uh, yeah,
but okay. So before the pandemic, there was this Elixir Curitiba meetup. There were some meetings. One of them was at Ateliware's office. So I visit Ateliware offices,
really,
although I don't work there, and you you work there and you didn't visit. But okay,
yeah.
the question. The question is not related to that. Is what projects are you currently working on? What technologies besides Elixir, or are you I don't know, maybe you are not working with Elixir, but what
Mhm.
technologies do you find most exciting or challenging in your current day to day work?
Yeah, that's pretty cool to know that. Yeah, because I know that you're living in Curitiba, so you're pretty near the office, and you've been there, and I hadn't. That's sad, but yeah, actually, Ateliware is being a great experience for me because I've been learning a lot with them, and they just like embraced me, and they have a culture where you take your own responsibility for your work, so they treat everyone as tech leaders there. You're your own tech leader, and I got to know a lot of cool stuff in there. But yeah, I went to Ateliware to work with Elixir. Of course, I'm not limited to that. I even worked on a project that was just Node.js when I got in because they still didn't have an Elixir project in there. So after that, they had me work on several projects there. I think I worked on 5 or 6 projects there already. I'm working there for 2 years now, uh, and I'm pretty pretty happy. Uh, I've been working with some cool projects and with some cool technologies that I got to learn and to implement and different environments. For example, I got to implement CI/CD pipelines on Azure DevOps. So, for example, now we have Fly.io, which is pretty simple to deploy. Uh, so I was pretty used to setting up CI/CDs on GitHub Actions, but then there I was in a project that we used Azure DevOps. So I had to learn again how to implement a CI/CD, and Azure DevOps was pretty cool to learn how to implement CI/CDs there. So I learned that and I documented that and I posted that in the company uh, communication channel that we have there, and they liked it. So that was pretty cool. Uh, I've also worked on a project with Elasticsearch. I don't know. Have you heard of it? Have you heard of
Yes,
Elasticsearch?
yes.
Yeah, so it's like they say, it's for search. So you basically use it to search large datas. I've also been using MongoDB with Elixir. All of that I'm talking has been with Elixir. I'm mentioning because these are some technologies that you don't see every day people using Elixir with these technologies such as Elasticsearch or Azure DevOps or MongoDB. And I'm using, like right now, for example, I'm working a project that is it's a project related to the sports betting field, and we use MongoDB there with Atlas. So we deal with like millions of data, and that's been really cool to understand how it works and how we can use MongoDB. And actually, it was new for me because I just found out that we have a Postgres plugin to run MongoDB queries, and I didn't know about that. So we've been using that. That's been great. So if you're few out there want to use MongoDB with Elixir, you now know that there's a Postgres plugin to use it. And of course, I've been working with LiveView as well, which is one of the latest technologies uh, for the Elixir core, and I think it has been a great game changer, and I've been working with it as well. So yeah, working at ateliware has been a real roller coaster in the good side, of course, because I've got to work with many different stuff, and I look forward to keep working with a lot of different stuff because I'm really loving it.
That's great. And let's talk just a little bit about ELXPRO because you,
Hmm.
from your story or your history, you're already you are already someone that okay, I want to learn something. I'm going to find something to help me.
Yeah.
And how was your experience with ELX Pro, and how has that experience influenced your approach to your current role?
Yeah, so just to fill the gap in the story that I was telling, when I learned about Gustavo's YouTube channel with this friend of mine, Marcio, I already know that he had a course. And I kind of, uh, you know, I kind of wanted to get the course for almost 3 months, 4 months, I don't know, but I couldn't at the time. I couldn't because of some financial problems, and I wasn't working. Like I wasn't making much. I was working in just a company from my town, and they don't really pay you much because I was just an intern, and I was later hired, but just as a junior. So nothing really changed much in terms of financial. So I couldn't buy the course at the time, and I learned the Elixir basics with Gustavo's videos alone, and I really loved it. So I knew that Gustavo was a good teacher. I knew that he was a good teacher, and he was the only one at the time which were teaching Elixir, and that's pretty funny because Elixir is a Brazilian language. Why don't we have like a bunch of YouTubers or developers in YouTube teaching Elixir in Portuguese? Why is it so hard to get Portuguese content? Which for me wasn't ever any problem because I was already used with learning stuff in English, but it was good to learn in your own language. So I knew that Gustavo was a good teacher and that he had a pretty complete course. And actually, I didn't ever found out any course like in Udemy or any other platform teaching Elixir so complete as ELX Pro. So I wanted to get it. I wanted to get in. So I talked to Gustavo on Discord, and he told me that he was preparing another class. So sorry. So when he finally launched this new class, I got in, and I already got in uh, as a friend of as Gustavo being a friend of me because he was already helping me. Like he was already giving me tips on Elixir. I remember that I had an interview back then uh, with Stone, and I passed this interview with just learning Elixir from Gustavo's YouTube channel. I didn't even have the course at the time, and I passed this interview. I made the challenge that Stone had at the time, and I did it in Elixir and Phoenix, and they loved it. They passed me, but I was already doing the interview with ateliware as well, so I went in with ateliware, and I don't regret it. I loved it. So that's how I got to know the course, and I know that the course already got me, past the interview. So why not buy it? I had to buy it, so I bought it, and I never regretted it because it was a really game changer for me. Because uh, Gustavo doesn't just teach you how to code in Elixir, how to understand Elixir core, but he teaches you with real apps. And when I say this, I mean you can build apps from the course that you can use on your own portfolio, because that's what Gustavo helps you. Helps you build your own portfolio for the market. And another thing that I love about ELXPRO is that stuff that I learned from ELXPRO, uh, I got to use in my day-to-day job. For example, in ELXPRO, you learn to code using TDD methodology. So you're always testing. You have applications that are 100% tested. And I've got to implement that in my own projects and in ateliware, at ateliware. And when I did that on ateliware in a project that I was working, me and the tech leader of my team, we mentored our team to start using TDD. And we started using, they're now using TDD on their day-to-day technology. And the result was that they have a lot less bugs now. There was times that they didn't even have bugs in the backlog. So that came from the course. I learned that good practice on the course. I learned practically how to do that. Of course, also the CI/CD that I was used to doing with GitHub Actions, I learned from the course. I learned to use Kubernetes with the course. I learned to use, I learned to just, deploy an Elixir application in a few minutes from the course. So it has been really great. I just regret for not having, for not have bought it before. So yeah, my experience with the ELXPRO, I can talk for hours because they still helping me. I'm still doing the course because the course is pretty expensive. Expensive. I don't mean expensive in money, okay? I mean expensive because it's pretty complete. Uh, and Gustavo's always updating the course, so you always have new contents there. When he does like an event or anything, he publishes it there, so you always have content. And of course, the community that you get on ELXPRO, like I like to say that I'm part of a Brazilian Elixir community, and it's ELXPRO because some of the guys that I knew there, uh, we help each other. So when I have doubts, they help me. I have helped a lot of people as well in there. So it's a community, and it's an Elixir community. So when you buy the course, just the community, it already pays off. So yeah, I have a lot to say about ELX Pro because that what really got me into the world of Elixir, and that got me an Elixir job. So that's why I hold ELX Pro so dear.
Okay, so one last question. It's more general. It's related to to the need that every software developer has a need to get up to date with new things in the area. How do you stay
Yeah.
up to date with the new things, new frameworks, new languages, new services? How do you do that?
So mostly I do that reading blogs, reading blogs such as Fly.io has a blog for several languages. They have a blog only for Python. They have a blog only for JavaScript. They have a blog only for Elixir, which is called the Phoenix Files. And so I love reading from there because it's pretty, well explained. Everyone there is pretty senior. So, and they teach stuff doing real labs in the article. So I like to keep it up to date there. Also, I follow some YouTube channels like stuff that are tech related. For example, I like to follow. I don't remember the name of the channel now, but it's a guy that he likes to do live coding. So he takes lead code challenges and he solves them. And I like to solve lead code challenges as well. So I like to follow this course. Not this course. It's not a course. It's just a YouTube channel, but it's like a course, let's say. So, and yeah, also let's see. Yeah, also ELXPRO because Gustavo still has a YouTube channel which he publishes content there. I think weekly, if I'm not wrong. And so yeah, Elixir Forum, of course, because that's how you get up to date with Elixir. Elixir new features, Elixir live view news features, everything about Elixir in there. And if you have also like a doubt and you publish it on Elixir forum, you're certain that you're gonna get a response in a few minutes, and it's gonna be might be response of some pretty great guys, in the field. So yeah, so for me, it's the best like places to learn. Of course, I also like to read books. For example, I'm reading a book for LiveView, which is called I had this name here. Let me just it's programming programming Phoenix programming Phoenix LiveView. Yeah, I think that's the name of the
Is
book.
it the one by Sophie de Benedetto
Yes,
from Pragmatic Programmers?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
I know Sophie. She's a mentor at a program, a very nice program.
And there's
cre-
also another one there. I think it's not just her alone. I think there's also another
It's
guy.
Bruce Tate. Bruce
Yeah,
Tate, the other author.
yeah,
Yes,
because I read a book from him, which was called Concurrent Data Processing in Elixir, which he
yes.
teaches parallelism and concurrency. So I knew this book was also from him. So yeah, and it's good to learn live view as well. So yeah, I'm
Okay.
reading this one.
Thank you, Rickson, for sharing your experiences and insights. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, I think just thank you again for having me. It was a pleasure being here, uh, talking a little bit about my story. Thanks for giving me this space. And that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you again, and a big thank you to all our listeners who are joining us, and either on YouTube or Spotify or your audio platform. We appreciate your time and attention, and see you next time. Bye bye.